In the summertime of 2014, early June, I woke up in a hospital bed, being told that I was being sent to a psychiatric ward, and they weren't sure for how long. This was my first overdose, and I was 13 years old. It wouldn't be my last one, but I'll get around to that. So in this video, I'm going to be discussing how I knew that I was an addict, how I knew I needed to make a change in my life, and why I got sober, and most importantly, why you might be an addict too. This video is going to be pretty free form, just me speaking the way I usually speak. My last video was scripted, the review of the 2Cs, so if you'd like to watch that, it's on my channel. In those videos in the future, and in that one, I will be having a script because I have to rate them on a 30-point scale for safety, addiction potential, and enjoyment, but this is just me more ranting. So let's start at the beginning. Immediately, from the first time I ever put a substance in my body to become intoxicated, I used like an addict. I was 11 years old and I stole a beer from my parents. It wasn't at a party, it wasn't to fit in with the cool kids, it was to get out of my own mind for a little while, and I heard alcohol could do that for me. So I took this beer, I went up to our attic, and I drank it by myself, alone. Being alone was a big theme throughout my use. Getting high and getting drunk for me was never about sociability. I didn't use things because I wanted to fit in or be the cool kid. I used things because I needed to not feel like myself for 10 minutes or 10 hours or 10 days if I was binging. I just needed to not be there. I needed to not be myself mentally. When I was 12, I started smoking pot, and I was pretty much the worst stoner ever. I got caught the second time I ever smoked because I got unbelievably baked, ate an extreme amount of Tostitos chips with no salsa because I was too high to locate the salsa, threw up all over my floor, and promptly called my mom and told her I had the flu because I was too baked to clean it up. So you'd imagine, once my mom came in and she saw, wow, my 12-year-old son is very clearly stoned right now, I would have stopped taking drugs. But at that point, I was already sort of in the thick of it. I couldn't stop changing my mental state. I needed to not feel like myself again, but I knew I couldn't smoke pot. It was expensive. Well, to a 12-year-old, $20 is kind of a lot, especially when you have an allowance of $0 a week and your mom packs your lunches so you can't even skip meals and use your lunch money to get blazed. So I started raiding the family medicine cabinet. I was introduced to opiates when I was 12 years old, with codeine and Percocet. From there, I began experimenting more and more, and once the pills in my family's medicine cabinet ran out, I started looking in other families' medicine cabinets. I distinctly remember one time I was at a good friend's house after 8th grade graduation when I was 13, and I looked in his family's medicine cabinet and saw an old bottle of Ativan. I quickly looked up on my phone, can Ativan get you high? And the answer was yes, obviously. If anybody knows what it is, it's a benzo, like Xanax, like Valium. And I wanted to get as high as possible, so I took 6 milligrams. I can't tell you what it feels like, because when you take 6 milligrams of Ativan when you're 13 years old, 120 pounds, and have zero tolerance to benzos, you black out. You don't remember shit. And that's exactly what happened. But I just knew I needed to feel as high as possible. I binged on pills for a long time, and that's what led me to my first overdose. At this point, the consequences were mounting. My family didn't trust me. They didn't want me going out by myself. They were checking my phone. But I didn't want to stop feeling that high. So overdose number 1 came. That was on prescription drugs. Ativan, Klonopin, Vicodin, codeine tablets, and alcohol were all in my system. I took all of them because I needed to feel absolutely nothing, because I hated my mind. I hated everything about it, and I hated everything about me. I just needed to not be there for a little while. That was just overdose number 1. Not too long after, even though my parents at this point had no trust in me whatsoever, and I spent 3 days in a psych ward because they thought maybe it was a suicide attempt, because who the puts that many fucking pills in their body without trying to kill themselves? That fall I overdosed again, this time on over-the-counter dextromethorphan, DXM, because I was out of medicine cabinets to raid. I had just turned 14. At this point, I had sort of developed this ideology that I'm just a drug enthusiast, and what I was really looking for was a psychedelic experience, and I thought DXM was the closest thing to it, until I could find acid or mushrooms or something similar. So I did that for a while, and then I had that overdose. It wasn't as much of an overdose as it was just a hospitalization, but I was still put in the hospital for it. So I get out of that hospital after another 3-day psych ward visit, because they saw, well, he's already been to one once before, so maybe this was a suicide attempt. Better safe than sorry. I get out of that one. At this point, my parents are kind of thinking to themselves, maybe he's an addict, but I'm still saying, fuck no, I'm not. So I stopped taking the DXM. But around this time, all my friends are getting a bit older. We're in high school now. And high schoolers, especially the juniors and seniors, they had the real drugs. They had acid, they had Molly, they had mushrooms, and I wanted to fucking take all of it. So I did. I tried to get my hands on every psychedelic I could. I started buying online. Then I had my 3rd hospitalization. I went through a long psychedelic phase, and I know that you can't physically be addicted to psychedelics, but you can definitely be addicted to wanting to get out of your own body, and the fact that psychedelics can provide that definitely means that you can become a little bit psychologically dependent on them. Not to the extent of something like heroin. I believe that something like heroin can create addicts. Something like LSD cannot create a drug addict, but I think a drug addict can use LSD, psilocybin mushrooms, mescaline, whatever, the same way a heroin addict can use heroin, which is as much as possible, as frequently as possible, because they want to feel high. I was hospitalized because I was tripping so hard that I stripped off all my clothes. I was burning hot, and I was begging my roommate to kill me. Begging. I needed the trip to stop. I needed to die. At this point, I was 15. So, you'd probably think, wow, that's pretty fucking intense. You gotta be done with that whole side of life. And I was. I never took another psychedelic again. But I still really loved ketamine. And I still really loved Molly and GHB and cocaine. And once I started taking ketamine and I realized, hey, this is maybe a little more fun than the psychedelics I've been taking, it opened a whole world of dissociatives for me. I'll elaborate more on this later, because my drug of choice, the thing that I ultimately became addicted to, was phencyclidine, PCP, angel dust, whatever the you want to call it, sherms, dippers, I don't really give a shit. That was my drug of choice, and I used it every single day for a year. And I feel fortunate that I came out alive, that I didn't, fucking cut open my stomach and throw my intestines at the cops and think I'm God or some shit at any point. I'm a lucky one, but I'll get more in probably 2 videos from now on the effects of that in my life. My 4th hospitalization, it wasn't an overdose. It was actually my trip to rehab. At the time I was seeing this girl, I was still taking PCP every day, and she was a big fan of heroin, and I was doing it with her. And one night after a rave, we decided to shoot up and just fall asleep, wake up in the morning, and I don't know, try to find our next fix, I guess. That's pretty much what my life devolved into. Go to school, live for the weekend, get high, go to school again, and then get high at school if I had enough drugs for it. But she didn't wake up. She did too much. She overdosed and she died. So I came into rehab. When they drug tested me, I told them the last time I used was a week ago. They saw that I had cocaine, heroin, PCP, and large amounts of GHB in my system. I've been sober since that point, and I feel fortunate because of that. But I should have known I was an addict long before she died and long before any rehab told me. I should have known I was an addict when I was out of drugs and I couldn't stand to be within my own mind. When I would get physical cravings, like a knot in my stomach, I would say, I need to feel high right now, just on fucking anything. If diabetes medication can get me high, I'm gonna fucking take it. If laxatives can get me high, I'm gonna take them. It doesn't matter, I just need to feel high. That's what scares me about a lot of the kids I was around. My use escalated very quickly because I was really into the rave scene in my home city of Philadelphia. So I was introduced to a lot of people who had a lot of drugs. But I know a whole lot of kids who, when they run out of weed, they run down to the fucking Rite Aid and they grab themselves a bottle of Robitussin because they don't want to stop getting high. To me, that's the mark of an addict. If you have to feel high, if you fucking crave it, that's addiction. That was me. And if that's you too, just keep your eyes open. But I'm lucky. From my point of view, there's essentially a cure. I do Alcoholics Anonymous. Even though I was a drug addict, I drank, but I wasn't an alcoholic. I was a full-on drug addict. Not a junkie, not a cokehead, but a fucking dust patient. Pretty rare breed, but still a drug addict. If you're getting those cravings that I got, if you're getting to those desperate places, it's okay to ask for help. You can hit a meeting. Nobody's gonna judge you. You can go in and say, I don't think I'm an addict and I think fucking AA is bullshit. Nobody's gonna judge you because I was there too. My first meeting, I was 15 years old. I said, I am not a drug addict. I just like getting high and I'm gonna grow out of it. But I never did. I didn't grow out of it until my brain started fucking deteriorating. I still haven't grown out of it. I still get cravings sometimes, but I can't get high anymore. Because I know the next time I get high, maybe I'll do some PCP and maybe I'll jump off a roof. Maybe I'll shoot some dope, end up like my ex, lying in my bed, dead. It's always okay to ask for help, but always question why you're getting high and if you're getting cravings. I'm not saying people can't use drugs and not be addicts. I know people who binge on coke for a week and then don't do it again for a year just because they don't get that physical knot in their stomach that tells them, I gotta do more of this. because they're not like me. But maybe you are. And maybe it's time that you just talk to somebody about it. My inbox is always open. If anybody out there wants to send me a message, and we can just talk. Even if you don't think you're an addict, even if you're just asking questions, that's the perfect place to start. So that's all I got for this video. Thank you guys for watching. My next video is probably going to be a review and reflection on heroin. A drug that, while I wasn't addicted to it, has impacted my life in major ways, mostly because of the impact it's had on those I care about. So look for that in hopefully the next week or so. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.